Hey, this video is for Greek class. It follows along with your Croy textbook, so I would encourage you maybe to grab your textbook and kind of look at this chapter along with me. This is a continuation of the same third principal part that we looked at in chapter 13, the aorist. Aorist is simple past, and we have some verbs in aorist that are just typical and that follow the normal pattern of an epsilon plus a saw. And then we have some that are radically different, and so we treat them a little bit differently because we just have to learn them. The second aorist is formed by changing the verb stem, and so that's why you need to know that this is a third principal part. And these changes can't be predicted, they just have to be learned. So some of them you might be able to try to guess. So like balo, which means I throw, in the past tense, I threw, ebalon. And this is similar to what it is in English as well, I throw versus I threw. You see how it's just changed a little bit. Lambano, though, changes even more because you lose the mu, and so elabon, instead of I receive, you now have I received, past tense. But then some of them are radically different, like go, went, gone in English. Here's an example. Lego, I speak. I spoke. And this one happens on almost every page of the New Testament because somebody says something and it was in the past. So this is very, 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 very common. These are going to have to be ones that we do learn. We don't do a ton of memorization here, but we're going to treat these like vocab and just learn a bunch of them. Here's how they're formed so that you follow the same kind of pattern as you do elsewhere. You take the third principal part, which is often just radically different from either the present or the future principal parts, the first or the second. And then you add an epsilon to the front because it still is a past tense, and you add the secondary active endings. So here's an example. Lambano, see the verb at the top, I take, I receive, gets an epsilon augment, gets the secondary endings, it becomes elabon, I received. Elabes, you received. Elaben, he, she, it received. Elabomen, we received. Elabete, y'all received, and elabon, they received. The endings themselves look just like what you saw in the imperfect, what you've seen mostly in the aorist, on, ace, in, amen, ete, on. I'm not concerned that you'll have trouble figuring out the person or the number. That's going to come to you pretty like along the same kind of ways that you learned before. But the trick here is to just know what the stem is, and that lob is actually from this verb lambano. So it's going to take a little bit of memorization to do that. Here it is side by side with the imperfect, so you can see it looks basically exactly like the imperfect. That's why I think you'll be able to figure out what person and number. But it's that radical stem change that we just have to memorize, just have to learn. Here are some examples to help you see it. Blepomen, kai, legomen. We see and we speak. In the past tense is edamen, kai, apomen. We saw and we spoke. Radical change, two really common words. You're just going to have to learn them. They're in your vocab for this chapter. Just memorize them. Ego, fuego, autos, efuege. I flee versus he fled. So I flee is in the present tense. He fled is in the aorist. Fuego becomes fuge. They're close, but not exactly the same. Humes, piptete, hemes, episamen. This is, again, just a weird one, and you have to learn it because it happens frequently. You fall, or y'all are falling, versus we fell, and saw. You can kind of catch that one, but these are ones we just have to learn. The middle tense is formed the same way. The middle of the aorist tense is formed the same way, and so you just start with the third principal part, the second aorist tense stem. You add an epsilon to the front, and you add the secondary middle endings: elabomain, elabu, elabeta, elabametha, labeste, elabanta. The second person singular is the odd one, but you don't see it super often. The rest of them you're going to recognize the person and number. The thing to identify, though, is this radical stem change that lambano has become lob. Here they are. I took myself, you took yourself, he, she, it took themselves, so on and so forth. it's going to follow our other rules. It's just that you have a radical changing of the stem. The example I can think of in English is I go to the store, or I went to the store. We're so familiar with it because we say it all the time. This happens with some of the most common words in Greek, and so you just have to memorize them as vocab words. Here it is next to the imperfect. Like I said, the endings are going to be recognizable, the person and number, but the stem change is what has happened. All second aorist verbs are irregular because all verbs stem change. Some stem changes are more difficult to recognize than others. For now, I would suggest this. If you learn your vocab for chapters 14, you're going to learn the vast majority of these that matter in the New Testament. That list in the vocab is really well done by Croy, and so it really gives you the most important words. And then you can also, if you'd like to add some more vocab to that, learn the ones in paragraph 95, and between those two lists, you've got a bunch of the really common irregular second aorist verbs that there are. We do have a second aorist infinitive. Again, the only thing to help you identify it is that you have an irregular stem change. So labain is to receive, but it looks just like a present except that you've got a stem change. So lam with a mu, lambain, is to receive in the present. Labain is to receive in the past. Right now we're not treating those differently. We'll worry about that next semester. It's just to recognize it. Same thing, you now have an esthai here, lab esthai, to be received, to be taken. There's no epsilon augment in the infinitives because only indicatives have that epsilon augment for the past tense. Here are the things to kind of focus on. You have a radical stem change, you have the epsilon augment, you have the secondary endings, but the main thing to focus on is the radical stem change, meaning that this chapter, the vocab has to be memorized, the other list of second aorist verbs has to be memorized. But after you've done that memorization work, then you've got this. No, we're not going to treat the first and the second aorist different. I've been in some Greek classes where they wanted you to identify if it's a first or a second. As long as you can identify it as aorist, as past tense, that's the only thing that really matters to me, because very, 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 very few verbs have both forms. Most of them are either a first or a second, and so we treated them as separate chapters, but it's really doing the same thing, and so I don't care if you tell me first and second. Just know that it's an aorist, know that it's in the past tense by learning your vocab this week and by learning the epsilon and saw from the last chapter as well. All right, this is a short video, and it does not have all the vocab that you need, so I would watch this video again, but then I would really start immediately working on my vocab from this chapter. And then if you have questions, feel free to email me or bring them to class and we can talk about them further. Okay, looking forward to it.